Foreign Relations and Appropriations Committee member Bill Hagerty. Senator, pardon me, welcome. You've been very outspoken about illegal immigration, but before we get to the border, I have to get to your thoughts about what's unfolded this week on the House floor. What do you and your fellow Senate Republicans make of all this and the impact that it's going to have on your agenda? There's also some concerns about national security with no one able to meet on important issues in the House. Your take?
My take is very simple. This has been a very transparent process in the House. I support all of my House of Representative colleagues on the Republican conference, and I have every confidence that this is going to turn out to be very therapeutic at the end. It's a process, and what's wrong with a lot of the things that we're talking about? We're talking about more time to actually read the bills rather than having to pass it to find out what's in it. We're talking about going back to regular order and having committees function as they should. Again, I think this is going to wind up in the long run to have been a therapeutic process. It is really interesting to me to see the way the media is covering this, talking about radicalism and fringe and extreme in terms of the way this process has unfolded. Look at the Senate. What do you think happened in the last Senate when Chuck Schumer took control again just 2 years ago? There were serious negotiations that took place. It just didn't happen in the open, in a transparent manner. How do you think we wound up in a situation with Bernie Sanders, an avowed socialist, as head of the Senate Budget Committee? Tell me there wasn't a lot of negotiation that took place when we wound up with that result. Again, what the American public is seeing here on the Republican side is a more transparent process. Again, I think it's going to be therapeutic and strengthen us in the end.
Senator, President Biden is taking advantage of the GOP infighting in the House to announce some plans to finally visit the border while pointing the finger at Republicans. Listen.
I will visit the border myself this Sunday in El Paso. Clear that immigration is a political issue that extreme Republicans are always going to run on. We need more resources to secure the border. Yet again, extreme Republicans have said no. I'm left with only one choice: to act on my own.
That action that he announced includes expanding efforts to quickly expel migrants from Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Venezuela who come here illegally. But he says that will still allow up to 30,000 of them a month that qualify through a new online vetting process. Senator, I want to get your take on all of this, but also to that statement directly. The president keeps pointing the finger at Republicans, saying that there is no funding. There was funding in the omnibus bill, but they're using it to process people, not to secure the border.
Exactly. The omnibus bill actually prohibited any enforcement or any actual border security. It was only organized toward processing people more rapidly. Again, this is a ruse. What Joe Biden has said for the past 2 years about the crisis, again, that he precipitated. If you think about this, when President Trump was in office, the migrant protection protocols were working. We had the most secure southern border that we've seen. We were in the process of fully securing it. Biden comes in and wastes millions upon millions of taxpayer dollars, leaves the border unattended, just drops all the construction on the border wall, and creates massive chaos at the southern border. It's interesting. You know, we've let over 5 million people into the country illegally. At least that's what we know about under Joe Biden's watch. And for 2 years, Joe Biden has said there is no crisis at the southern border. Now, conveniently after the midterm elections, CNN and other newscast organizations are actually looking at the border, talking about the crisis there. What he's got is a media and an optics problem.
Yeah.
That's what yesterday was designed to deal with. This is a media and an optics problem for them. This is actually, from my viewpoint, a national security problem. But from Joe Biden's viewpoint, and to use his own words, it's a political problem. That's what he's trying to address. What he's actually going to do, and if you dig deep into what he's saying, this is just a process to accelerate the processing of people, make it more efficient perhaps at the border, because he wants to do away with those embarrassing images of people coming across the river.
Yeah.
That's what this is all about.
And many people are saying that the visit 2 years into his presidency is basically, as you pointed out, after the midterms, also to check a box, to get the media to stop saying you haven't been there. And we saw Gavin Newsom go down there as well. And rather than talking about or trying to work on securing the border, he really went with a focus of processing, which sounds like you think this president is going to do the same.
Oh, it's obvious from yesterday. Basically, what they talked about with their new app to help people schedule their illegal entry into the country, you can imagine what the White House press office is going to be saying. If you want a ticket to enter the United States illegally, we've got an app for that. This is what Joe Biden's policy boils down to. This is about accelerating people in. There is zero deterrence here. It's actually going to increase the coyotes' ability to market access to America. We're going to see more illegal immigration as a result of this. He's going to make the chaos even worse.
Yeah.
What he's trying to do do is address the optics of all of this.
And just to clarify, the portion of people who are trying to come across who legally qualify for asylum is very, very small compared to the amount of people who have gotten into the country illegally that we've allowed essentially through an open border. As you mentioned, more than 5 million people in the last 2 years or so alone. And so, you know, there's no steps being made to say we need to reform the process, we need to do things legally, and we need to kind of work on the system together, rather than just leaving the border open and now, as you said, putting an app in place for easier processing.
Jackie, let me tell you what this really is. It's a pretext for what's to come. What you're going to begin to hear from Biden, the Democrats, and even in the media is a word called comprehensive, or a term called comprehensive immigration reform. Comprehensive immigration reform is the Democrats' code word for basically mass amnesty. Yeah. It's their code word for a pathway to citizenship. It's their code word to transform America. It's not going to work. It's going to actually accelerate, make the crisis even greater. Look at my home state of Tennessee. Deaths by fentanyl accelerating each month over the month before it. They've created mass chaos, mass havoc. This isn't going to trouble Joe Biden's voters, his donors up in Martha's Vineyard. This is hurting people in Tennessee. It is going to hurt more and more migrants as well, because these coyotes are going to market these new messages and try to get these vulnerable people to give them their life savings, put their children and their loved ones on a dangerous journey. And we're going to see more and more carnage at that border and more deaths here in America from drug overdoses as a result.
You make an excellent point. It's not only the drugs coming across the border, but those on the terror watch list as well. And illegal migrants are fading out into the country. And you see it happening in all different states, complaining about the fact that they need funds to be able to house them, to educate them, to offer them health care, to feed them. This really is a national crisis. And Senator Bill Hagerty, we appreciate your time today to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.